Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Northside Bound YouTube channel. My name is Greg Huss, and today we're back to cover another Cubs prospect profile. Today, we're talking about Mo Baller. We're talking about Moises Ballesteros. If you guys are looking for other Cubs prospect profiles, I've already covered everybody, all the position players that I have ranked in my top 10 players in the organization. That is Pete Crow Armstrong, Kevin Alcantara, Owen Casey, Jefferson Rojas, Matt Shaw, and James Triantos. I remember them all. So if you guys want to check those out, go to the channel feed for Northside Bound. Check those out. Really appreciate you guys tuning in and subscribing. It means a whole lot. Today, like I said, we're covering Moises Ballesteros, one of the most fun players in the organization to cover. One of my favorites for sure. I have him ranked as the number 11 ranked prospect in the Cubs organization. Today, in his profile, we're going to cover 5 different elements, right? So we're going to cover one, we're going to go through his player card, look at his stats from 2023, and just kind of dig into his offensive profile from that perspective statistically. And then after that, we'll dig into his strengths, weaknesses, potential outcomes for him at the major league level. And then we'll end by talking about his timeline in the minor leagues all the way up to the major leagues. So let's start by digging into his player card. You'll see here, like I said, I have him ranked 11th in the organization. Moises Ballesteros is still only 20 years old, which is wild to me this offseason. He had a full season. He displayed a full season worth of action last year, totaling 494 plate appearances across 3 different levels. He started off the year in Low A Myrtle Beach, which he logged his most plate appearances in Low A Myrtle Beach, but it kind of seems like a long time ago that he was down there. He went to Low A, High A South Bend, Double A Tennessee, and performed terrific at all 3 levels during his time there. Overall, his standard stats across the board: batted 285, that's terrific. 374 OBP, that's terrific. Slugged 449, great for a catcher at 20 years old. OPS of 823, that was good for a 118 OPS plus, a 131 WRC plus. All these advanced stats, 100 is league average. Anything above 100 is better than league average, and he's better across the board. On my bash metric, he was, I think, tied with Owen Casey as the second best hitter in the organization. That bash number takes into account league adjustments, which would account for Low A Myrtle Beach being a really tough league to hit in, ballpark adjustments, which again, Myrtle Beach is a tough ballpark to hit in, and then age adjustments, which how young are you compared to the players that you're playing up against? And he was younger than everybody at his levels. He was younger than the guys at Myrtle Beach, definitely younger than the guys in High A South Bend, and then absolutely younger than everybody in his small sample size of 22 plate appearances in the Southern League down there in Tennessee. Overall, just great numbers. The swing strike rate there at 9% is well below average league, or way better than league average, I should say. He did not swing and miss a whole lot. He pulled the ball a decent amount more. I'd like that number to be even higher, but he got better at that this year. The ground ball rate, again, a little bit higher than you'd like to see, or sorry, lower than you'd like to see, but still a pretty good number. He refused to strike out. 15.8% strikeout rate is incredibly low, as you'll see against that K percentage plus number. And then he also walked a ton. Everything he did at the plate was tremendous. I want to point out one thing as far as these stats here go. That pull and ground ball rate. He's a guy that I think can afford to continue to hit the ball in the air. That the fly ball rate can be increased, and then pulling those balls in the air, and those home run numbers could just explode when he continues to do those 2 things more. So let's go ahead and dig into Moises Ballesteros' strengths, because there's plenty of them. I think that Moises Ballesteros is the most complete hitter in the Cubs organization. He, between his feel to hit, his pop that he displays, and the plate discipline that he has to not swing and miss, to identify strikes, lay off balls, all that good. Like, all things told, he is the best hitter, the most complete package in the entire Cubs organization, and I can't emphasize that point enough. That's all that matters here, right? That's all that matters in terms of strengths. We'll get into weaknesses, but in terms of strength, just know that he is the complete package at the plate. He's everything that you want to see. Now, I know he's only 20 years old, just turned 20 years old. He spent last year as his age 19 season. So there's plenty more to build on, but like there is plenty of base there to build off of. Like, it's already there at such a young age. I can't emphasize enough how good Moises Ballesteros has been at the plate. Weaknesses, it all revolves around the defense for Moises Ballesteros. The swing is there offensively, everything is there offensively. It all revolves around the defense, right? So when you're looking at him behind the plate, he's a bigger guy. He still has to work on his body a little bit more, but I thought he worked on it quite a bit last year. He looked in much better shape in the year than he did to begin the year, in my opinion. I'm not here to tell you that he's a super bad defensive catcher. I just can't say for certain yet. He doesn't necessarily look like a catcher. I think the arm is good for what it's worth. I think the arm is good behind the plate. I just worry about his ability to stick behind the plate. And if he's not sticking behind the plate, then defensively, like I was actually really impressed that 22% of the time spent at first base. I was really impressed. He looked smooth out there in terms of fielding ground balls, picking the ball at first base. He looked good defensively at first base. However, he's he's listed at 5'8". I think that might be giving him an inch. I think that it's very, very rare that you see a guy at his height playing first base. That scares me a little bit. And so then at that point, you're falling back on DH. You guys know how I feel about ranking guys that are first baseman in DH and how much pressure that puts on a guy performing at the plate. I rank Matt Mervis lower than most people like to see. I rank Hayden McGeary and Brian Calmer lower than most people like to see, but it's because there's so much pressure. You have to be you see this like this WRC plus of 131 at the major league level. If you're a first baseman or DH, you have to put up like a 120 or greater WRC plus, or you're not playing. Like you're not a first baseman or DH putting up a 105 OPS plus or WRC plus and continuing to play. It's just so much stress on that offensive profile. So I think what you're seeing with Moises Ballesteros, let's go ahead and transition in the potential outcomes with this next conversation. Like I was saying with Moises Ballesteros, what you're looking at is if you view him as a catcher long term, if he can be a catcher long term, then that is a guy that's in the tier of Pete Crow Armstrong and Cade Horton. That's a top 20 player in all of Major League Baseball in terms of prospects, because if he's for sure a catcher and he has this offensive profile, that's elite. That's incredible. If he is a first baseman, if he's not a catcher, if you believe he is a first baseman despite his height and he can play good defensive first base, then I think at that point you're still looking at a guy who's like flirting with that top 100. I think that's a top 100 prospect in all of baseball, considering the bat and considering his ability to play a good defensive first base. If he is not a catcher, if he is not a first baseman either, and he's only a DH, then you're looking at a guy outside of top 100 prospects in baseball. You're looking at a guy here that's outside of your top 10 prospects in maybe even a worse than current status Cubs system. I think he's outside the top 10 at that point if he's a DH. So it gets really tricky on how you evaluate him based on his defensive chops. Potential outcomes, I think it all revolves around that. I think that you could continue to see him climb the system very quickly. I think that you could see him as a all-star caliber player year in and year out if he's a catcher and putting up numbers like this. That's wild, man. That's crazy. Even if it's not quite this good offensively, if he's a catcher, that's an everyday player for sure at the major league level. You could also see a guy that gets relegated to the designated hitter role and then kind of slips up hitting, right? If he continues to sell out for some more power to the pull side, if he is looking to pull more home runs, if he's looking to get in the air a little bit more, but it doesn't quite get to the level of like consistent 30 home run power a year, while also sacrificing some of that swing and miss to get to that level where he's like striking out closer to 25% and not getting to 30 home runs, then that's a player that I'm more skeptical about. That's a player that looks more like a Matt Mervis than a top 20 prospect in all of baseball, you know? So I think there's still a pretty wide range of outcomes, but I do believe in his ability to hit. I do believe that he can be a plus, a above average hitter at the major league level. So let's look at a timeline for Moises Ballesteros. He ended the year last year in Double-A as a 19-year-old, which is wild. I think we see him back to Double-A Tennessee, working as a catcher behind the plate for the Smokies in 2024. And then I think, like I said, I think he could be quick. I think we might see Moises Ballesteros playing age 20 season at the AAA level for halfway through the year, towards the end of the year. We won't see Moises Ballesteros in Chicago, even as a DH, I don't think, in 2024. I think you're looking at a timeline for Moises more in line with late 2025, early 2026 as to when we see him in Chicago. Anything quicker than that is just kind of icing on the cake, and it's something you can get just super, super excited about. This is in Moises Ballesteros, a player that is incredibly fun to watch play the game of baseball. He's a fun at bat every time he strolls up to the plate. The swing is one of the most beautiful swings in the system. It rivals Cole Roeder in terms of the most beautiful swing in the system. He is a fun player. He is. There's a reason why Mo Baller is every prospect followers one of their favorite players. He's fun to watch, and it's going to be great to see what he does in the 2024 campaign and in years into the future with the Chicago Cubs. So I want to hear what you guys think about Moises Ballesteros. What are your thoughts on Mo Baller? Do you think he can stick behind the plate? Do you think that he'll move to first base? Do you think he's destined for the designated hitter role? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to give a like, give a subscription. We'll see if more of these prospect profile videos come to be on the Northside Bound YouTube channel. But if you haven't watched all the others, like I said, there's plenty more over here in the feed over at Northside Bound. Be sure to subscribe. If you're looking for a Cubs prospect podcast, I'm your host of the Cubs on Deck podcast, joined by Brian Smith, joined by Greg Zumak, and some player interviews that you can go check out from this past offseason. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys very, very soon.